Hi, and welcome to a weekly review of the main Forex markets and looking at some of the key equity markets. Before I go talk about that, of course, I need to talk about last week's reactions. Of course, we had Trump voted as president for in the US elections, which was quite a surprise. Now, we was expecting quite a rally to the upside if that was the case, which we saw initially occur. But what we didn't expect was the sell-off that occurred afterwards. And what it seems is that his conciliatory terms in his acceptance speech, or his um, main speech following the voting, seem to be quite toned down from what was expected. Now, I've been reading lots of data since, and there's still lots of things going to happen. But the very fact that he mentioned construction and getting on with building and investment seems to have got the US off onto a bit of a bounce, and particularly we'll see that in the equities in a short while. But let's have a look at the main markets in terms of Forex at the moment and look at the euro dollar first. And we've seen a sell off of this last week, quite a big sell off. It ran back into the price of support line of the wedge that we'd had there, ran through it a little bit and then sold off significantly and took out the prior lows there as well. So if anything, it's looking, I mean, big bearish engulfing effectively. Now, we've seen a continuation through this morning, and looking at the dailies here, it looks like it could see a continuation of that yet. In fact, I would need to come back to that weekly chart to look at, well, where's the support potentially sitting? Well, we've got support sitting on looking at that sort of prior low there of that week there, 107.12 sort of area maybe. We'll see some support along that. We have got this original trend line that was sitting along the absolute lows of what is a much bigger wedge sort of pattern, which again, if that comes down there this week, we're looking at around about 106.55. So there's still some potential downside there. Not a lot of obvious support as we run through. Apart from when we start looking, we can look at using the monthly pivots that are sitting here. And maybe there's some support at 106.3, 18, etc. I won't say etc. But then 104. So there is some potential support levels coming through. We are effectively getting close to being a bit oversold, not necessarily that much yet, but it's certainly heading in that direction on my signal, but not, as I say, quite oversold from a daily perspective. So there's potential for further continuation. What do I expect out of this? Really just opportunities to sell at the moment. It's until we see a more defined change in trend, and it may be shown from the sort of shorter time frames, 60-minute time frames, but at the moment I'm really looking at the potential continuation to the downside. Now, we have got a weekly pivot above us, so if we do see at some point a change in the dailies here and maybe a break above the daily 8, well, the weekly pivot would be an obvious initial target there, but for now it looks weak. The pound not sold off quite as strong. Let's look at the weeklies first, and a lot of that, of course, is to do with where it came from in the first place and the fact that it's been quite hammered of late. There are some positive signs potentially from the comments that have been said between May and Trump that there may be some deals to be made, and they probably both need some decent deals at some point. But at the moment, this week we started on a selling note. Bounce back into the daily 8, so we've come from the Friday's highs into the daily 50, which no surprise to see some sort of reaction back to the daily 8. Now it's whether or not we can hold into this daily 8 and continue to build to the upside. Certainly looking better as the morning progresses today. A break of the daily 50 would see us much more optimistic. See me much more optimistic, and it may then come back into this prior range that we were sort of sitting here above the 128 figure. So it would be towards the 135 that had been sitting in for a few months there. So if we can get back up above this daily 50, I've become much more bullish. At the moment, I'm quite neutral to erring on the bullish side from what we're seeing here. Now, I'm saying that, and I just should point out there was a divergence on the dailies here into that 50, which then gives a different perspective. If we do see a continuation of the sell-off, a break below the daily 21s would see me becoming particularly bearish on cable. Okay, moving on to dollar yen. Looking at the bigger picture here now. Weeks and weeks ago, I was looking at the more positive and the potential for it to pull back, and every time I seem to look at it, it's then sold back below its weekly 21. It's back above it now with some vengeance by the looks of things. And we could be heading on for we've got I put the weekly 50 on here and the 200, so you can see there's possibly some key resistance matching up around about the 108. 59.60 sort of area, which could provide a bit of short-term resistance. I'm looking at the 110 potential as a key number, and it's the sort of figures that were being sort of blasted around a long time ago, where the Bank of Japan would like to see the yen back towards, and well, it may be a key number, but it's also been a key number in the past in terms of support and resistance. So I would be looking at that 110 area, or I say support and resistance, more pivotal than anything. If it breaks this 50, I mean, it has tested before. If it breaks the weekly 50 at some point, well, then you've got to be looking more on the bullish side. For the people looking at the short side, of course, the weekly 50 in itself could provide an opportunity for a retracement. It has been tested before. Is still pointing down at a nice 45-degree angle, and well, maybe that would be sufficient to strain the movement. Looking at the daily monthly pivots, well, 110 is my preferred sort of figure. 110.80, it's the R3 there. Which is a possibility, certainly at the way we're moving at the moment. But it certainly, to me, looks more bullish than anything else. Look at the bearish side, if anything does start switching around, it needs to break the daily 8, and then we'll have the weekly pivots maybe as target. So that's where I'm sitting at the moment, with the yen looking much more bullish. Aussie dollar. Well, the Aussie dollar is a hard one to read at the best of times, and it's not changed that at all. Still in this very chop basis on a weekly basis, bearish engulfing, could see it sell off some more towards its weekly 50 there at 74.27. We've seen it slow this morning. It's not really done too much. It's finding support generally a lot along this sort of low area around about the 75 area, so wouldn't be too shocked if it found support again and then just chopped back up and maybe ran back into that range. It's certainly a possibility. It seems to be sitting on the periphery of most of the currencies, as I say, very choppy. There are the opportunities intraday that are sort of occurring from time to time, but at the moment it still, to me, looks like it could get down to that sort of S1 area, monthly S1 area, and maybe 200. Maybe that in itself could give it some support for yet another bounce into range. Difficult one to read overall. Canadian dollar, well, I think you know what the situation is. I'm going to run through into oil, of course, before we look at it in too much detail. And oil's come back off now, so it's sort of whilst I didn't see any benefit of this oil increase, price increase in oil into the Canadian dollar, well, we are seeing the effect of it, the sell-off in the price of oil a little bit there. Now, this could change quite a bit. We do have meetings, and we are expecting to see some OPEC announcements, etc. At the moment, it may not all go to tune, but we'll see how that runs. And that could be the biggest shocker for oil, and it could, of course, move the Canadian dollar in due course. But the Canadian dollar at the moment, it really is continuing this upside here. It's above its weekly 50. It's looking bullish, if anything, at the moment, and moving up quite strongly. from a daily perspective. It bounced off the monthly pivot there. Has got a weekly pivot below, but well, any retracements back towards that, the 8 to the daily 8 may actually give yet another bounce and a continuation to the upside. But at the moment, not particularly overbought. Looks like it could continue to the upside. Right, looking, covered oil off there a little bit. We'll quickly cover oil. Gold. Gold's been seen the downside here, but lower highs in, pushing through lower lows, and well, the bigger picture, the 200 still facing south, and we could continue to see a move down. What's in the price of gold? It may be short term. Heading a little bit oversold. It's certainly showing it a little bit oversold. I say short term, but from a daily perspective, maybe we'll get a pitch back towards its weekly pivot, which in turn may give opportunities for selling again as it gets towards that, especially if it sort of coincides pretty much with the daily 8. So looks, as I say, a bit oversold at the moment. When we see this sort of these previous oversold sort of phases, it's taken a long time to push back up again, and it may be the same sort of situation we see here. Okay, let's have a look at a couple of the indices and look at the Dow Jones. Well, the Dow Jones is probably not a massive shock. If you'd watched the markets last week, they were rallying quite strongly. I suppose there is a partial shock. It wasn't planned for this to happen, and we've seen the Dow Jones at new all-time highs. Now, whenever it does it in such a shock movement, I do wonder when it will just tumble a little bit and at least have some sort of retracement. We are pretty overbought on a daily from a daily perspective here. That's not to say it won't push up a little bit further first, but I am expecting some sort of correction, even if it comes back towards the daily 8s, daily 21s, but the daily 8 certainly may see some sort of correction. We are almost extreme on the RSI as well here, which may, for those that want to buy, give the opportunity of pullbacks into the daily 8 as a buy point. Right, look at the FTSE. FTSE's not pushed up as well. It had a sort of recovery last week and then failed again. Moving back up a little bit at the moment. Pushing back up, but it's sold really from that monthly pivot. It's right on the weekly pivot, around near the weekly pivot at the moment. Could regain some of its lost territory from last week. Looking back here, but with the lower highs in and the confirmed lower highs, actually this high here has not been confirmed as a lower high quite yet. So, well, we'll see how we run over the next couple of days. A break back above the weekly pivot, of course, we'd have to be bullish, but at the moment, it could just consolidate where it's sitting. Any breaks of the lows really just confirms that as a lower high, and well, maybe over the next few weeks we could see it moving towards the daily 200. Okay, that's pretty much it for me. News-wise this week, I should just point out the sort of key news stories I'm looking at. We got Draghi speaking at 3 p.m. this evening, or this afternoon. It seems like this evening because it's dark. It's getting dark at that time here now. But we got Draghi speaking at 3. I would expect some volatility. He's speaking twice this week, on Monday and Friday, to start and end the week. He wants the first and last words, really, by the looks of things. May kick some price action there. We've got the monetary policy minutes for the Aussie midnight or just after midnight tomorrow. Leaning tomorrow, and following that, I'm just looking. We've got 8:15. We've got the Aussie Reserve Bank governor speaking, so we may get some price volatility around that time as well in the Aussie. So that may be sort of enough to get that Aussie moving back into its range. I expect it's going to be erring on the more bullish side at the moment, but I may be completely wrong. Looking through then on Tuesday, we've got inflation figures, the CPI data coming out for the UK. That's pretty key at the moment, and traders will be watching that. And the higher it is, the less likely we'll have any further cuts. Not that we're expecting any further cuts at the moment on the interest rate. following on from that inflation report hearings coming in at 10 o'clock. So quite an inflationary day tomorrow for the pound. Again, I would expect volatility around those hearings potentially, although well, actually, I think they could actually be quite choppy. The markets could be quite choppy there. I'm expecting that the governor would be saying and keeping his line of pushing for potentially increase in interest rates if necessary, if they get out of hand. So that was his more stronger line. Okay, we've got core retail sales in the US on Tuesday afternoon, leading through that into Wednesday. We've got UK data again leading the morning with employment figures, again really key here, and following the day through, we've got, I'm just looking, capacity, okay, not massive important news the US wise. Perhaps the PPI may get a bit of volatility at 130, although it's not really a big mover of late, for some time now. But what will get things going on Thursday again, UK, so it's a big figure, a big week for the UK here, and the pound. Retail sales coming out 9:30 on Thursday. US then moves into inflation data, and again that's quite a key, some key figures at 1:30 on Thursday. So looking beyond that then, well, Friday really just with the ECB. Oh, sorry, we got Fed Yellen testifying at 3 p.m. on Thursday as well. So really is quite some potential volatility around that. Joint Economic Committee, Yellen's in front of on 3 p.m. on Thursday, just to clarify that. And then on Friday, ECB President speaking again. He's addressing due to speak at the Euro Finance Week. So really everyone's from the ECB point of view looking for clues at what's going to happen next as the monetary policy has come to an end of its original providing further support. So people are waiting to hear, are they going to provide some further support? The easing, that is. Beyond that, we've got FOMC members speaking at 10:30 on the same day due to monetary policy, the road ahead. Okay, so volatility could be good on Monday morning, 10:30 there. We've got speakers, and generally when the German Bundesbank president speaks, we often see a bit of volatility as well. Leading, that's pretty much it. The Canadian data, see inflation data out later in the day may create a bit of volatility with the CAD, but so quite a big week, as I say, for the pound ahead. Okay, that's it for me. Hope you have a great one. Bye for now.